This morning, the scriptures are a little bit more lengthy, so I'm going to read them up front. And the title of this one is the 2-for-1 miracle. Okay? So we're going through these miracles of Jesus, and next week we're going to do the last miracle, but it's actually a part 1 and part 2 miracle, because I can't cover it all in one sermon. So I'm doing part 1 and then part 2, and about the first week of July, we'll probably do something patriotic, and then we'll move into another whole series, okay? So this was from Mark 5:21 through 43. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when they saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be blessed and live." So Jesus went with them. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, "If I touch his clothes, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around to the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciple answers, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing that what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet and trembled with fear, and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they had said, Jesus said, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And when they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him, and they went in where the child was. They took her by the hand and said to her, "Talith kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was about 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. She gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. And again, we see Jesus using that reverse psychology of saying, don't tell anyone what has happened, full well knowing that as human beings are going to run out and tell everybody that they see. Okay? So this is what is called a 2-for-1 miracle. Okay? These two miracles are unique in the fact that they happened on the same day. We all know what this is what I call a pogo day for Jesus. Okay? We know what BOGO is, buy one, get one. So this is the pogo, perform one, get one. Okay? So because Jesus gave away a free miracle here, and one that he didn't actually anticipate giving away. And often, that's how God longs to show us his true love and perfect love in ways that we don't always understand. Both miracles took place when Jesus was in a very large crowd. Jairus, as a synagogue leader, probably, it says a religious leader, a synagogue leader, maybe even a rabbi, runs to Jesus because of his status in the community. He can do it. The unnamed woman cautiously reaches out and touches. One is bold and approaches Jesus boldly. The other is meek and cautious. And there are 7 significant similarities between the two miracles that both happen almost simultaneously. Okay? And yes, I said 7, and we're going through all 3, but it's not going to be that long of a sermon. Okay? I know when people hear like there are 10 things, and then you think, oh Lord, here we go. They're not going to be that long. I do want you to recognize the similarity, though, that often we've heard the story of Jairus' daughter, and we've heard the story of the woman touching Jesus' cloak, but we didn't realize that happened on the same day. That Jairus actually came to him in his way to get to Jairus' house. The woman touches his cloak, And as he gets to Jairus' house, they find out Jairus' daughter has passed away. It's all in one time period there. I kind of like things chronological. Often we hear those stories as kids, but we never put together how it happened. Right? There are 7 significant similarities here. The first one being exactly what I said, the time frame. Now, if you look at the Luke version of 8:41, it says, "Then a man named Jairus, the synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying." The girl was about 12. The woman had been bleeding for 12 years. 12 is a significant number in the Bible. We often hear 7 and 40. 12 is also significant. There's the 12 sons of Jacob, which became the 12 tribes of Israel. There were the 12 disciples, and that's just a few. There were a lot of 12s, okay, a dozen of things. God is often looking at a much bigger picture than we are. Right? So the time frame there may be part of the bigger picture that we're looking at. Both miracles involve death somehow. The little girl is dead or dying or dead, I should say. And the woman that bled for 12 years can't go on forever. At some point, the blood has to run out. Both come to Jesus to be healed and try to avoid death. So both miracles have an element of death in it. Both take place in the presence of noise, chaos, and commotion. Noise, chaos, and commotion. Jairus approaches Jesus in the middle of a big crowd. And he's bold about it. He goes right up to Jesus and says, "I need you to come to my house." And the woman is in the middle of that crowd. And I can kind of see her kind of meekly reaching out just to touch and see. Because if you read that, she had tried just about everything else. All the doctors, she'd spent all her money, everything. She's there by faith. But both boldly and meekly came to Jesus to be healed. In the middle of that healing healing took place in the middle of noise and chaos and commotion. Okay? So sometimes when there's all this stuff going on around us, we may not realize exactly what all is going on. Both miracles took place in the presence of fear, too. Jairus begged repeatedly. He was fearful his daughter would die. And the woman was so afraid that she didn't even speak. She didn't even go to Jesus. She just stood behind him and reached out. Both demonstrated a desperation. And if you know, this whole series on miracles has been that there's been a desperation before the miracle happened. Okay? And Jesus tells the woman after he figures it out, and I think there's an interesting part of the scripture where he says he can feel the power go out of him, okay? Which is her faith. And he says, "Who touched me?" And the disciples are saying, "There's people everywhere." It's probably like being in the middle of the blues thing yesterday. There's people everywhere. Somebody's going to run into you and touch you. Okay? And he said, "No, someone touched me." And he kept looking, and the lady finally came up and said, bowed lowly and said, "It was me." Right? She was fearful. Okay? And he just simply told her, "Go in peace. Your faith has healed you. Go in peace." And he tells Jairus, "Do not fear, only believe." Both situations come down to a presence of faith. Jairus is a religious leader, and he's desperate. The woman is equally desperate. And it took the same amount of faith in both situations to go to Jesus. And immediately, both are an immediate reaction. Verse 27 says, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Because she said, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. And then the Jairus part is he took her by the hand and said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. So both were immediately healed. It wasn't a go do this, You need to pray for 3 weeks straight. You need to say this prayer for 3 weeks straight, and then it'll happen. It was immediate. It happened. For both the family, the little girl and the woman, there was peace and calm as a result, and it came just as an immediate thing as they relied faithfully on Jesus. In these two miracles, Jesus shows us that nothing, not even death, can stop him. Jesus can overcome death. It's foreshadow. You know what foreshadow is? It's kind of giving you a hint of what is to come. But the healing miracles are somewhat foreshadow to show that Jesus can conquer death. No obstacle will ever become between God and his children unless we put it there. That's kind of the whole thing around these two miracles, is both Jairus and the woman who touched his clothes could have put an obstacle there. There could have been unbelief, that I believe, Lord, help me with my unbelief. There could have been unbelief. I don't think I'll go and try to touch Jesus. It won't do any good. Right? Which sounds like something a lot of us would probably say. Well, I don't know why I'd do that. I've tried everything else. That won't do any good. Oops, stepping on some toes there, maybe. Okay? But they took the obstacle away. They took it out, and it was all in faith. And Jesus, it doesn't matter, no devastating news, no crushing debt, no amount of anxiety or worry, or no amount of isolation or loneliness can separate us from God unless we put the obstacle in between us. God doesn't put the obstacle there, we do. And that's what this 2-for-1 miracle is really all about. The big story of the Father's compassion for us, of Jesus' compassion, of the love that Jesus showed these people. And true love is unstoppable unless you put the barrier there. True love is unstoppable. And that's one of the greatest miracles of all.